here. With us now is Stuart Rothenberg. He's editor of the Rothenberg Political Report, of course, a contributor and columnist for CQ Roll Call. And you shared a very personal experience that you had as a parent having to do with brain trauma, having to do with your son. And you write about it this week in connection with all of this speculation and talk about the United States Senate. Why did you choose to write this column?
Well, Chuck, I'm kind of conflicted about the whole topic, and that's very difficult to talk about. But when the subject turned away from the Congresswoman's health and first the tragedy and then now the recovery to politics, it made me a little uncomfortable. And it's hard to talk about because I feel like I'm trying to read between the lines sometimes of the news stories.
Because you knew so much about, about how this works, about how fast or slow recovery really is and really isn't. I wanted to kind of bring, most people thankfully don't have to deal with a family member having a traumatic brain injury. I didn't know anything about a rehabilitation hospital. I didn't know about any of these things. And it occurred to me that most people don't. Most people thankfully don't have this kind of experience. So when I see some stuff on television, I kind of read through the lines. And maybe I'm reading correctly, maybe sometimes I'm reading incorrectly. But I thought it was time to write about it when it turned to politics, campaigns, and elections. Again, we don't really know what's going on in many respects, I think. There are plenty of news reports on it. But what I sometimes was with my son's experience in emergency, in ICU for 2 weeks and then rehabilitation hospital for many weeks, it's kind of different in some respects from what I see on air.
But let me read a portion of what you wrote. You said the lack of anything negative or even an acknowledgement of any deficits at all with regard to Congresswoman Gifford's recovery coming from the Congresswoman's family, friends, and medical team, it makes me wonder whether the widespread reports of progress tell the whole story.
Exactly.
So people understand where you're coming from. Your son suffered a brain injury, and so you're familiar with the fits and starts, how complicated recovery stories are, how each one is different, and it sounds to me you just want everyone to have a measure of caution as they think or expect some kind of miraculous recovery that would enable her to run for any office.
Exactly. He had an automobile accident, traumatic brain injury, was found unconscious in the vehicle. The first responder told me after the fact that he didn't think my son would make it to the hospital. But he did. He was on a ventilator only for 24 hours. He had a right brain injury. The Congresswoman's injuries on the left. He had an automobile accident. She actually was involved in the shooting. So there were significant differences. But I remember talking to all the doctors. They always said 2 steps forward, a step back. And there are ups and downs. And we went on the site CaringBridge. I think it's caringbridge.org. That's a really good medical site where families can instead of calling people every day or sending out emails to every family member, you can post up. And some people are more forthright than others. We were pretty forthright, I think. But it was very clear in talking to the doctors that this is a very up and down process. One day is good, one day is bad. I would always, I'd say to my wife, just focus on today, not tomorrow. Today was good, great. If not, tomorrow will be better.
How's your son today, Stu?
The good news is he's completely recovered. He walked out of the National Rehabilitation Hospital after almost 2 months, and he had some more outpatient rehabilitation. But he is back to normal. So, miracles do happen, and so we of course, hope for the same outcome for the Congresswoman.
Indeed. Well, thank you for sharing your story. Appreciate it, Stu Rothenberg. Sure.